Good morning.
How are you?
All right, and yourself?
I'm well. I'm
Good.
well. Eyes here.
There you go.
Eyes here. I'm so excited. I think this is our first non-rainy weekend in I don't know how long. I'm excited. Even though I have to be in the building, I got rehearsal or practice for my girls. They have a recital tomorrow, so I'll be in the building. But at least I can walk around for a minute or something, get a few moments of some natural vitamin D.
There you go.
Do something productive with myself. How are you? Everything's good?
Yep, pretty
Okay.
good.
Okay. I'm loving the backdrop. I love that. Did you check? Look, I'm looking like, is there anything different? I
No, it's the
see.
same.
Every time I look, I see something different. Like, okay, all right. Nice aesthetic. Nice aesthetic. Love it. I don't do that one thing that the people do, even though I'm feeling compelled to do that. Snap, do the little finger thing, whatever. Yeah. But it looks good. It looks good. All right, all right. Let's see. Let's get this started. Funny thing was, I did all of my work early on, and then I fell asleep last night. So I had to get up this morning and finish it. I said, wait a minute. Where's my stuff? I said, oh, I fell asleep. No, I can't stay up late. All right, all right. Let's begin. Let's begin. I hear that. That's a song. Well, welcome everybody to our Saturday morning tea. Here we brew up the hottest topics in healthcare. We discuss health information, news, education, the beautiful weather, vitamin D, and how it's important to your skin and overall well being, certification tips, and entrepreneurship. Also, the revenue cycle at large. And as you come in, don't forget to hit the thumbs up or like button. I'm Clarice Warner, the girl with the pearls, the founder and senior education director of the Professional Reimbursement Network, LLC, where coding education is key. And PRN is a healthcare compliance consultancy located in Cincinnati, Ohio, that specializes in revenue cycle and regulatory compliance in education. Now, let me ask you, do you know what it takes to be a certified marketable medical coder? Do you? Well, before I introduce my co-host, I know several are interested because I get the emails every week. Before I introduce my co-host, let me share with you information on a free email course on the 5 steps to become a certified marketable medical coder. Are you interested in medical coding, but not sure where to start and scared of wasting time and resources? Let me help you with the right steps to become a certified marketable medical coder. Learn more at bit.ly/5stepscoder. That's probably, I don't know which one my favorite. I'll be teetering between the 3. All right. If you are interested in getting more information about the 5 steps to become a certified marketable medical coder, check the video description for the link on whichever platform you're watching us on. All right. So joining me today is my partner in success, my co-host, Mr. Jesse, the registered trademark. Put some respect on his name, the coding nurse. Sir, introduce yourself and tell the folks all about you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jesse. I live in Philadelphia. I've been in healthcare for a very long time. In 2014, I left the bedside and switched into risk adjustment coding. During the pandemic in 2020, I created a company called the Coding Nurse LLC, where I help nurses and other people in healthcare with a clinical background transition into the wonderful world of HIM.
And how's that going?
It's coming along nicely.
Okay, nicely. I'm liking the glasses too. Wait a minute. I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
thank you.
I'm
I
loving it.
had these for a minute now.
I
But
know, but
but I
there's
have a
something about the light. It's something about the light
oh,
that's
okay.
hitting them, that's catching them. So I'm like, wait a minute, because the little shape is there. I said, well, wait a minute, sir. Come on, come on. Um, are you going? I heard a radio announcement the other day. Yes, I still do listen to radio, but I heard a radio announcement the other day about a free concert in Philadelphia with Jill Scott and all the people. Do you go to that?
No, it's too many people.
It's too many. Okay.
And well, this year anyway, there's probably going to be a lot of stuff because isn't this year the 250th anniversary? So
Mhm.
Philadelphia played an important part in the beginning. So
It did.
they kind of
It
keep
did. I see when I came to visit and went to the museum and saw all the things, I said, "Well, look at here, all of the history here. It's great. It's amazing." Yeah, I heard that. I thought about you. I was like, "Don't make me slide to Philadelphia just to go to a free concert." But then I was like, I'm like you. Too many crowds. I had to be in the back. I had to be way across the way somewhere just so I could hear it. Not necessarily
exactly.
see it, just get to hear it.
And it's not like it used to be. It'd be something now. If Frankie Beverly was still here, it'd be a
Uh,
different story.
uh, so is Jill Scott the headliner for it now, or they just
Well,
mentioned her? Somebody was like, well, "If you want to get a free Jill Scott concert, this is where you can come." So that's how they was advertising it.
well, I don't think she's going to be the headline because well, musically, Philadelphia has like a long
A
history, and we have,
lawless, yes. And
so
it's
it's
supposed
a
to be a
lot.
lot of people on that stage.
Yeah,
It's all day long, like hours.
yeah, and they have like because Jasmine Sullivan now was the new Jill Scott,
Okay,
so.
okay, okay. All right. Look at us getting our musicology together. All right. That's what's up. Okay, well, I was just curious. All right. Well, before we jump in, let me remind you that you can join in and add to the conversation. So don't be shy. Your opinion matters and is welcome here. We see you guys on here. Just come on. You can talk. It's all right. So just use the chat and you can type Q first if you want, if there's a question for us so that we don't miss it. So, sometimes folks talk amongst themselves in the chat, but if you want us to see it, make sure you type the Q so we can say, oh, this one is for us. All right. So for those who are just joining us or watching the replay, today we are talking part 2 of a 3-part Respect the Code series, Bearing the Burden, the Human Cost of Being Ignored. But first, let's get into our church announcements, shall we? Hey, hey, hey. All right. Well, one of my church announcements, I was playing around. Like I have this show that I watch, and I was playing around. I don't know if it's going to show up on here. I don't know if it's going to be right on here. It might not be right, but I'll show it anyway. So I was playing around. So I'm looking at this different kind of formatting thing, and I think I got it, but I need to still play around. And the show has like the little topics off to the side. Wait a minute, I don't know. Let's play. We'll see. So to have like the church announcements, and then I'll configure it where you have a square, I have a square, and then it'll hit like what we're talking about on the side. But I gotta move some stuff around. But this is what I was playing with. So this has been my homework all week, playing around. I was like, we're coming on another year. I don't remember what year this is, but I was like, let's play around with some things. So that's one of my church announcements. Me playing. Okay. So watch out, be done played and can't get it out. All right. That would be me. The second church announcement, Mr. Jesse, as soon as I saw it, I was like, I know somebody's going to appreciate this. All right. The DOJ, sorry. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
Oh, sorry. But we need the rain too. For the flowers and the crops and all of the things. But the civil division actually announced a few weeks ago the Focus Initiative for Data Miners filing QTAN complaints. See, I said, as soon as I saw it, I thought of you. So, so it's this whole anti-fraud initiative that, and let me put it over here. I'm straining my neck and it's killing me. All right. It's an anti-fraud initiative that is to help strengthen the working relationship with whistleblowers. So, which are with the key actually is. And believe it or not, there has been a surge driven by companies or individuals who analyze publicly available government data for potential signals of fraud. So these are the data miners. So they're actually getting that information, all that data. And as they're doing their thing and playing around in that space, they're finding some stuff and they telling. So, where the typical whistleblower was an insider, or so oftentimes it was like a spouse or employee or whomever. Now they're looking at these data miners, and this civil division is welcoming all the contributions that the data miners will have, and they want to prioritize working with them in all of its capacity to help them in their Focus initiative. Focus stands for Fraud Oversight Through Careful Use of Statistics. So they said, let's see, the Assistant Attorney General Brett Shumate said, sophisticated data analytics have become an increasingly important means of identifying fraud trends and uncovering patterns of misconduct across federal programs. The Focus Initiative reflects our commitment to ensuring that the Civil Division is engaging with the strongest and most effective partners in the war against fraud. So they're interested in hearing from data miners who believe they have developed particularly effective tools for detecting fraud against the government. They put their number out here. This is who you reach out to, focus.dataminers@usdoj.gov. So yeah, they welcome in the data miners with open arms for key TAM possibilities. So I thought that was quite interesting. Quite interesting.
Well, it is because, a lot of people are not aware, but CMS in particular, and I can't speak for anybody else, but CMS in particular puts out a ton of free healthcare data, a ton. You can practice and manipulate your heart out with real data. And I'm sure that's what's going on because I just scratch the surface when I mess around. I just do a little light, but there's some people that really do some digging, and especially now because they have it's just a sign of technology. Now you can use these large language models to help you analyze data. So it's just the jig is up on all these people. That's it.
With the agentic AI, where you can have the agents kind of work through and assist in whatever your process is or your strategy is in analyzing the data and looking for specific things. Yeah, you are absolutely correct. The jig is up. That's a great way to put it. And hopefully folks are paying attention and listening and appreciating. Just make sure it could all be so simple. Just make sure it's right. Just be right on the first pass. Just be right. Be right. Do the right thing. Always do the right thing. Mr. Jesse, do you have a church announcement?
No, but those were very good announcements.
All right. Like I said, when I saw it, I thought of you like, oh, he's going to appreciate it. If nobody else in this room appreciate it, you will. All right, let me turn the music down off. There. Okay.
Well, before we move on, I do want to say, we have been On the Saturday morning tea, we have been talking about healthcare data for how many years now? Before it was
Mhm.
really a thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
I just want to put that on the record.
Put it on the record, for the record. And you because you got a long track record. What you bet now? Because every time something come up, you be like, let me give my prediction, let me give my thoughts, and then lo and behold, here it is. I'd be like, well, look at here, look at here, look at here. I'm not a gambling woman, but I would bet on you. All right, so let the tea spilling begin. So again, good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome back to the Saturday morning tea, where we serve up the real talk our profession needs. We pour up something warm, something real, and something that genuinely matters for your career in health information, medical coding, compliance, revenue cycle, all of the things. I'm Clarice Warner, the girl with the pearls, with my partner in success, the coding nurse. And if you're new here, welcome, welcome. We meet every Saturday morning, usually, to demystify medical coding, billing, and everything that keeps healthcare revenue flowing, and talk about the things in healthcare that actually matter for your career, your compliance, and of course, your paycheck. And to my returning friends, thank you for being here. So get your cup or glass or whatever it is. Again, no judgment. And come on in the room. All right. So, when was the last time someone at your organization asked how you were doing? Hmm. Not about your charts, not about your accuracy rate, not about your turnaround time, but how you, the person doing the actual work every single day, were actually doing. Mhm. Well, this is part 2 of our 3-part series, Respect the Code, the Invisible Workforce Powering Healthcare. In part 1, we talked about how we got here, the misclassification, the workforce shortage, the offshoring, the exclusion from technology decisions, the historical context that explains, though does not excuse, how a workforce this essential became this overlooked. So today we go a little deeper. Today we talk about what that disrespect actually does to the people on the receiving end of it. We are talking about burnout. We've talked about burnout a lot, especially with our friends over at the AMA. They have a whole initiative going on about physician burnout. We probably need the same. Anyway, we're talking about compensation. We're talking about productivity pressure and remote isolation and the quiet exodus already underway in this profession. Mhm. This episode is for every coder who has ever felt the weight of this work without the recognition that should come with it. And it is for every healthcare leader who needs to understand what that weight actually costs in dollars, in talent, and in human dignity. It could all be so simple, and let us talk about why it is not. So, Mr. Jesse, jump on in. I want to start with something important, something I need you to hear before we look at a single data point. Burnout is not a character flaw. It is not a sign that you are weak or that you are not cut out for this work. Burnout is a physiological and psychological response to sustained, unrelenting stress in an environment that does not provide sufficient support, recognition, or rest. The World Health Organization, or WHO, defines burnout as an occupational phenomenon resulting from persistent workplace stress. It is characterized by low energy, emotional detachment from your job, and reduced professional productivity. Notice what that definition does not say. It does not say burnout happens because employees are not trying hard enough. Now, let's look at where the workforce stands. 76% of the US workers reported experiencing some level of burnout in 2025, with 53% experiencing moderate to severe levels. Separately, 13% of employees reported that fears about how AI would impact their roles were actively driving their burnout. Again, 13% of workers say AI fears are burning them out. In a profession where automation conversations are constant, relentless, and often poorly communicated, that number likely runs higher among medical coders. 2 in 5 healthcare workers report that their jobs feel unsustainable. Workers are not looking for complicated fixes. They want adequate staffing, leadership that listens, and time to recover. That's 2 in 5. That is not a fringe number. That is a workforce in distress, raising its hand and saying, this is not working. And the cost of ignoring that signal, burnout related productivity losses and turnover cost organizations 322 billion annually. Absenteeism rates are 3 times higher among employees experiencing mental health challenges than those without. $322 billion annually. And yet, organizations continue to frame burnout as an employee problem to be solved with a wellness app and an employee of the month plaque, rather than a leadership failure to be addressed with staffing, compensation, and structural change. Hmm. All right. It could all be so simple if we named this for what it is. Call a thing a thing. Let us talk about money, because in my experience, this is the conversation that makes people the most uncomfortable and the one that needs to happen the most directly. Here's where medical coder compensation stands as of 2026. Um, Salary.com posted in April 2026 the average annual salary for a medical coder. And this isn't everybody in health information or throughout the revenue cycle. It specifically spoke to a medical coder in the US. The average annual salary is $60,369, approximately $29 per hour. Salaries range from $47,350 to $73,780, with most professionals earning between the $53,554 and $67,389 annually. Again, that came from salary.com. I know we have very specific um, uh, salary surveys that come from the revenue cycle organizations. I think one was just released either last year or early this year. Um, I, I want to say it came from Actis or HC Pro, but but nevertheless, we have some more specific ones that come from the coding organizations. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, we talked about them in the first part, reported a median annual wage of $50,250 for medical record specialists in May of 2024. The national median reached $65,401 in 2025 when accounting for certified professionals and experience levels. Now, here's where this gets complicated and where I need you to pay close attention. When a typical 3.2% merit raise in 2026 is measured against the March 2026 Consumer Price Index or CPI reading of 3.3%, the result is essentially flat real wages. So a merit raise that does not keep pace with inflation is not a raise. It is a quiet pay cut. 3.2, 3.3, that point 0.1 matters. So again, flat real wages in a profession experiencing a 30% workforce shortage in an industry worth nearly $20 billion. That is not a compensation strategy. That is an organization waiting for its workforce to walk out the door. And the geographic reality makes this even more complex. State level salaries for medical coders vary up to $24,000 annually. In 2025, salaries dropped by more than 10% in some states, while others saw meaningful growth. Where you live has a dramatic effect on what you can earn, independent of your credentials or your experience. Up to $24,000 annual difference based solely on geography. This is why salary conversations cannot happen in a vacuum. A benchmark that works in California may be deeply inadequate in another state, and vice versa. Now, here's the number I want every coder to carry with them from this episode. A coder who remains on a flat career path over 10 years can expect cumulative earnings of approximately $575,000. A coder who advances, let's say, to auditor by year 4, then a certified professional compliance officer by year 7, can earn $730,000 to $750,000 over the same period. So the net 10-year advantage of pursuing advancement is about $155,000 to $175,000. Again, $155,000 to $175,000. That is the financial return on investing in your own professional advancement. And that gap widens with every year that you wait. Let's talk about why 47% of health information professionals are leaving. So, according to AHIMA and the National Opinion Research Center, or NORC, 47% of HI professionals cite low compensation as their top reason for leaving the profession. This is not a retention mystery. The workforce is telling organizations exactly why it is leaving. The question is whether organizations are listening. Again, it could all be so simple if compensation reflected contribution. Mr. Jesse?
Okay.
I want you to imagine being handed two performance requirements that exist in structural tension with each other, and then being evaluated on both simultaneously with no acknowledgement that the tension exists. That is the daily reality of medical coding in 2026. The industry-wide coding accuracy benchmark is 95%. The threshold that separates profitable compliant practices from those struggling with denials and recoupments. Below 95%, organizations face missed secondary diagnoses, documentation inconsistencies, and overcoding that trigger payer audits. 95% accuracy. That is the floor, not the goal. And it must be maintained across every chart, every specialty, every payer, every day. That standard is right and appropriate. Accuracy in coding is not optional. It is a compliance and revenue imperative. But here is where the trap closes. Coders are simultaneously evaluated on speed, charts per day, turnaround time, production volume, and accuracy. Focus solely on speed compromises accuracy. Focus solely on accuracy reduces speed. These two metrics exist in structural tension. And in most organizations, no one has designed a productivity standard that honestly accounts for both. So the result, coders bear the burden of an impossible balance while the organization measures only the outputs, not the conditions. And that impossible balance is being asked of coders in a coding environment that has grown exponentially more complex. The medical coding market is projected to reach $35.63 billion by 2029. Yet, productivity metrics used to evaluate coders in many organizations have not been updated to reflect the five-fold expansion of ICD-10 CM codes, multiplying payer requirements, or the added workload of validating AI-generated code suggestions. The market is growing, the complexity is growing, the compliance stakes are growing, the productivity standards in many organizations, they remain exactly where they were, often in the ICD-9 era, as though none of that growth is happening. That is not accountability. That is an organization operating on assumptions it has never updated. And the person paying the price for those outdated assumptions, yes, you guessed it, the coder. Remote work changed the medical coding profession in ways we are still reckoning with. And I want to hold both truths at once because this is not a simple story. The flexibility of remote work has been genuinely meaningful for many coders. No commute, more autonomy over your environment, the ability to structure your day around your work rather than a building's schedule. For many coders, particularly those managing caregiving responsibilities or chronic health conditions, remote work has been a quality of life improvement that matters. And 65.7% of medical coders now work remotely, making medical coding one of the most remote dominant professions in healthcare, which is probably the reason why I hear new folks interested in the profession say, "Oh, I just want to work from a job that works from home."
All the time.
All the time. "Oh, I just want to work from home." I'm like, "Sir, ma'am, there's more to this than just being able to work from home."
And
Really?
nowadays, yeah, and nowadays there are far more places that allow you to work from home doing a whole bunch of things.
Mhm.
You could work for
Even less.
Apple and work from home.
Absolutely. So, and some folks probably need to be looking at these other alternatives. I don't think
You know what?
they ready for what's over here. They not quite ready for what's over here.
They aren't because I have not had a student yet that was fully prepared for what medical coding means when they take my class. Once it's over, then they're like, "Oh my God, I wouldn't, I didn't think
I didn't know.
that." Exactly.
I didn't know. This is a lot. Just and some of them be like, just looking at these books, they get the big eye. I'm like, you see, they masked all these books behind that encoder, so you don't really see and know. That book is powerful. Those manuals are powerful. It's a lot in your hands when you see the actual manual. Nearly two-thirds of the entire medical coding workforce is working from home. And remote work at that scale without intentional community building creates professional isolation that compounds every other stressor in this episode. So, research published in Healthcare in August 2025 found that the absence of physical interaction and structured and social environments exacerbates feelings of detachment among remote workers, contributing to emotional strain and reduced job performance for some. So that's detachment. Because you can create your, yeah, detachment, emotional strain, reduced performance. These are not outcomes of a lazy workforce. They are outcomes of human beings operating without the social infrastructure that sustains professional resilience. And I get it, I understand. So, what remote work quietly took from coders that could easily, it could all be so simple if they just added it back, but that's neither here nor there. It took mentorship, that hallway conversation with a senior coder that answered your question before it became a problem. It took community, the shared experience of a team that makes difficult work feel less lonely. It took visibility, the organic daily proximity to leadership that help coders be seen and not just their metrics. It took away professional development, fewer in person training, networking, and growth opportunities for remote positions. And it took away boundaries, the physical separation between work and home that allowed coders to truly recover at the end of the day. That one I can agree with. um, I agree with them all, but that one that's personal to me. And layered on top of all of that, the AI anxiety we discussed earlier. 13% of workers cite AI fears as a burnout driver, and remote coders already isolated are navigating those fears largely alone. It could all be so simple if organizations provided more remote coders the community, mentorship, and visibility infrastructure that physical presence once provided by default. And you can do that. That's something that can be created in these remote um, environments. So let us name what is happening right now, and clearly without softening it, because the data demands directness. Yeah. 31% of coding staff are actively considering leaving the profession. 47% of HI professionals cite low compensation as their primary reason. And according to AHIMA and NORC research, these professionals are not leaving because they do not love this work. They are leaving because they cannot afford to stay. Nearly 1 in 3 coders is considering walking away. Again, let that number sit with you for a moment. 1 in 3, because it's not an abstraction. It is your colleague, your team member, your senior coder whose institutional knowledge took 15 years to develop. The newly credentialed CPC who entered this profession with passion and is already questioning whether the passion is sustainable. And this is not happening in a vacuum. This exodus is happening in the context of a broader healthcare workforce crisis that predates the current shortage. 20% of the entire US healthcare workforce quit their jobs between early 2020 and late 2021. 47% of healthcare workers plan to leave. They might already be gone by 2025. Healthcare sector job openings remained 40% higher than pre-pandemic levels. The pandemic accelerated the worst workforce exits that were already building, and the healthcare industry, including the coding profession, has never fully recovered. So, who is leaving and what is lost? Experienced coders, professionals with 10, 15, 20 years of specialty knowledge, the ones who know the pair quirks, the documentation patterns, the audit red flags. When they leave, that institutional knowledge walks out with them. It cannot be replaced by a software license. Mid-career coders, professionals in 5 to 10 years who have invested in credentials and specialization and are now facing the math on whether the investment is returning proportionate value. When compensation stagnates and advancement paths are unclear, they explore other options. And then you have your newly credentialed coders, new CPCs and CCSs entering a market where, quote, entry level, end quote, increasingly requires experience, encountering a mismatch between professional expectation and organizational reality that discourages them before they have fully begun. And each departure accelerates the shortage, which increases workload on those who remain, which accelerates burnout, which produces more departures. This is not a staffing challenge. It is a structural cycle that organizations are actively fueling with inadequate compensation and insufficient investment. And as usual, it could all be so simple if the exit interview data was taken seriously. All right, now I want to be fair here, because I believe that most healthcare organizations are not intentionally disrespecting their coding workforce. Most of the disrespect we have been discussing in this series is not malicious. It is a result of systemic assumptions that have never been examined, budgets that have never been recalibrated, and leadership that has genuinely not understood the complexity of what coders do. But good intentions do not pay the bills, and comfortable assumptions do not retain skilled professionals. So let me name what organizations are getting wrong, specifically and without softening, because naming the wrong helps us to get it right. So some common retention mistakes and what they actually signal. Mistake number 1, offering recognition instead of compensation. More than 80% of workers say regular leadership check-ins affect their well-being, yet most report they rarely happen. Meanwhile, organizations invest in employee of the month programs and shout outs while compensation remains flat in real terms. Recognition matters. It is not a substitute for a living wage. Mistake number 2, assuming remote work is the benefit Organizations that shifted coding to remote work often framed it as a retention and flexibility benefit. And for many coders, it was, but 65.7% remote without community infrastructure is not a benefit. It is a recipe for isolation. Flexibility without support is a partial solution. Mistake three, treating productivity monitoring as management. Tracking charts per day and accuracy rates is measurement, not management. Coders who feel monitored but not mentored, measured but not developed, tracked but not trusted, will leave for environments that treat them as professionals. Mistake number four, not creating visible advancement pathways. If a coder cannot see where the job leads, if there is no clear path from coder to auditor to compliance officer, no organizational support for credentialing, no salary structure that rewards specialization, then the organization has communicated without saying a word that there is no future here. Mistake number five, responding to a workforce crisis with outsourcing. As we discussed in part one, organizations that responded to coding shortages with offshore outsourcing as a primary strategy missed the root cause. The shortage exists because coders are leaving or not entering the profession. Outsourcing removes the symptom without treating the disease. Mhm. And what actually works? Well, according to the Indeed Pulse of Healthcare report, workers are not asking for complicated solutions. They just want adequate staffing, leadership that listens, time to recover, and compensation that reflects their real value, a career path that they can see. None of that is complicated. None of it requires a consultation or a technology platform. It requires organizations to make a decision about whether their workforce is worth investing in. Again, the $322 billion annual cost of burnout tells us the answer to that question. The cost of investing in coders is a fraction of the cost of losing them. Now, I want to close. Mr. Jesse, you want to?
The only thing I would just want to jump in and say is I just think that it's we talk about it all the time, but something has to change, and I think that I don't know where it would come from because clearly I don't think it's going to come from these institutions. I think it's going to come from, in particular, AAPC, because one of the biggest problems that I see with coders is they don't really have a clearly defined career path. Like, okay, you become a coder and then now what?
Mhm.
And it's also harder for coders to move around because we've talked about this for years. Like, it should not be hard or as hard as it is to change a specialty. Like, if
Right,
you're a coder, you're a coder. Like, of course, you're going to encounter codes in a specialty that you will see more frequently than if you work in another specialty. But
right.
it's just a different section of the CPT book. That's all.
And
Like, it
different
shouldn't.
guidelines that you have to follow,
Right.
but you can pivot to that because to your point, you if you learn coding and you are a coder is a coder.
And it's really it's much harder for um for coders to move around in the industry, and I think it's a shame. And I think that also what nobody is talking about again is there is an influx of nurses coming into HIM.
They've been
And
doing that, but yeah.
but I mean now it's really bad because a lot of people are leaving the bedside. Like, it's just crazy. And nobody is talking about how that is also limiting the options for coders. And people just have to I just think it is up to these organizations. And I would say it's more up to the lion's share should fall on AAPC, in my opinion, because I have come to accept the fact that for AHIMA, AHIMA has a whole different agenda, and theirs is not coder focus. Their focus is HIM, and they really push their RHIA and RHIT programs. God bless them. But that's then they're not RHIAs and RHITs are not coder focused. So that and that's not their focus. If those people go on to get a coding credential, that's better for them. But for someone who just has a coding credential, they have a whole different career path that they have to think about and navigate. That's going to be different if you don't have a professional certification to go along with your coding credential. And
Mhm.
those are real conversations that nobody is having. And I if this industry is going to survive, there are going to have to be some changes. And I think that a lot of people, that's why I love to do my presentation on a coder's transition to healthcare data, because coders have to start thinking outside the box. They have to start thinking, okay, well, I do know code, I do know these code sets, I do know these guidelines. How can I take that knowledge and then add something to it to become more marketable?
Mhm.
Like you start every show with, being a certified marketable medical coder. And
Mhm.
nowadays, marketing looks very different than it did even 10 years ago.
You're absolutely correct. When you're
That's
right, you're right. You're absolutely correct. Yeah, and I agree. And I think we talked about this last week that there hasn't or isn't a direct coding career path that AAPC has actually over the years actually mentioned. Their thing usually is just collect some more credentials or just create the chain behind your name, which is great, but that's not necessarily advancing you. I mean, into the next step. It's more laterally positioning you eventually to do something, but no one is ever saying what the something is. They haven't provided that. What is the next step, and is just getting all these credentials the actual uh path to the next step. Like there isn't a step by step, okay, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, versus just idly and with a lot of effort and money getting all these additional credentials. So you're right about that.
And I wanted to this is just like a little FYI. Like, yeah, I keep on, I've been talking about like the influx of nursing into HIM for the longest time. And I know like what I do in all of my classes, I because the majority of my students are nurses, and I
Mhm.
always tell them that you have to walk into this with respect for the skill and the craft. And I can't say that my clinical knowledge hasn't helped me, because I came into it with it. So I can't say that it didn't help at all. But
Mhm.
what I will always, the hill that I'm willing to die on is you do not have to be a nurse to do this work.
Mm-mm. No.
And so I'm leading somewhere, because
Mhm.
I had a conversation. It was really interesting. I talked to a former coworker, and they changed their workflow. So now they're having the DRG validation team send queries instead of contacting CDI to have them send a query.
Hmm.
So the pushback was, in order, because I'm like, I had never heard that, but
Mm-mm.
apparently the the thought process is that in some kind of ACTIS or HEMA white paper, it says that you have to be a clinician in order to send a clinical validation query.
The
I
recent white paper that came out.
that this is what I was told. I'm like, I never heard that.
Mm.
So
We can pull up that white paper. All right. Let's review the white paper. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
because it just constantly goes back to this premise that you have to be and we're going to be very clear when they say clinician, they don't mean LPNs either. They mean you have to be an RN or an MD or somewhere in between. So
Mm.
I'm very clear on that. Some places will they'll let an LPN be the redheaded stepchild. Some places won't. But I'm just saying this is the mindset that is out there, and this is also what is limiting choices and career options for coders. And I can honestly tell you, as somebody who worked in CDI, as somebody who has worked in DRG validation, well, especially CDI because you send queries,
Mhm.
query writing is a skill that you have to learn,
Mhm.
just like coding is a skill you have to learn.
Mhm.
And the reason why, because I've seen some coders send some really, really bad queries, but it's because they're not trained.
They're not trained for them.
So if you train somebody, okay, well, no, you don't need the query. And because it all goes back to you cannot escape the guidelines. No matter where, no matter where you are in the revenue cycle, it always comes back to guidelines.
Yep.
So if you have a firm understanding of the guidelines, it for me, it made me my ability to write queries better because I was clear about what I was asking. I wasn't just fishing around and putting stuff in it that didn't make sense because it was rooted in something. Like
Mhm.
I don't have to send a query to a provider about whether this person has a pathological fracture or is it traumatic if I see that they have a history of osteoporosis. The guidelines make it very clear you don't have to query. It is what it is. It's a
What it is.
pathological fracture.
That's right.
Right. So that just comes from being trained. And I just think that this is just it's going to come to a breaking point because for number one, there's not enough there it's supposed to be a collaboration and it's not becoming a collaboration. It's becoming an erasure.
Mm.
And I just don't know how the industry is going to respond. And I've been talking about this for years. This whole back and forth. But I don't know what the answer is. And I don't know how they're gonna address it, but I know it needs to be addressed because
It
it
is the
shouldn't be like
elephant in the
this.
room, especially with these two organizations under seemingly one umbrella. Somebody needs to address the elephant in the room. And yeah, turning a blind eye is only going to hurt a whole bunch of folks. There needs to, I feel like, again, from the history of CDI and what it was supposed to be, they just need to set the boundaries and identify what folks are bringing to the table or coming to the table, what they should be doing in this group. And those boundaries have been so blurry. The lines are marked. I mean, it's all over the place. It's all over the
But
place.
the boundary is all over the place because these these coding organizations have failed to call a thing because in my opinion, how CDI is supposed to work in a perfect world, when that person when that case goes to coding, there should be no questions. It's supposed to be ready to go. All they have to do is just code what's there. If they have to reach out to you, if they have identified an issue, that means you didn't do your job.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody talks about that. What and how it's all built baked into the system is your DRG mismatch rate does not is not a trackable metric.
Mm.
It doesn't affect anything. It doesn't affect your productivity. It doesn't affect your bonus. It's not even tracked. So if a
And
coder
it
has to
should
reach
be.
if a coder has to reach out to you and say you need to send a query because of blah blah blah, and they're right, that it should mean something rather than because they're very quick to say, oh well, no, I don't need to query that, and it may be true because because there are other reasons why queries are sent, like, because what they teach you in CDI, because everybody, and I get it, doctors, I clown doctors all the time, but they are under a lot of stress. I'm not going to even hold you on that. And you don't want to send an unnecessary query. You don't. So once it gets to a point that if you have like a solid, if it's an MCC, if you have a solid MCC or two, who cares about another condition? Let it go, because it's not going to change anything. You're in this DRG. It's solid. You got it documented. Let it go. Like, you don't have to. Everything does not warrant a query, and you have to have that balance. Like, if it's going to affect the DRG and the reimbursement, absolutely. But if it's not, then you have to realize, well, no, I don't have to say. And I've had to tell coders, well, it's not going to impact anything, so we really don't need to send it. But that's all part of being trained. You
Yep.
have to be taught how to look at things and see the
Yep.
bigger picture.
Yep.
Just like I learned it, somebody else can learn it. Somebody taught me. I didn't walk into that. I didn't walk into it with that knowledge.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. A lot of food for thought there. So I want to close this episode talking directly to you, the coder, the CDI specialist, even though Mr. Jesse just did, the HI professional who showed up for this conversation today. You have heard a lot of hard data in this episode: burnout numbers, compensation gaps, flat real wages, workforce exits. And I do not want any of that data to land as a reason to feel hopeless, because that is not the PRN way. And it is not the truth. The truth is, the data tells us that this profession is at an inflection point. And inflection points have two directions: downward towards continued undervaluation and exodus, or upward toward a recalibrated profession where coders claim the standing, the compensation, and the community they have always deserved. So part 3 of this series is going to be about that upward direction. We're going to make the business case. We're going to talk about claiming your seat. We're going to build the advocacy framework together. But today, right now, I want to leave you with 3 things you can do this week, regardless of where your organization stands, regardless of whether leadership has had any of these conversations. 3 moves that belong entirely to you. First is the self-advocacy pivot from invisible to visible. So start building your professional value file today. Document your accuracy metrics, your denial rate contributions, your complex cases, your payer policy expertise. Quantify your value before the conversation, because advocacy without data is just a feeling, and you deserve to walk into that room with evidence. Self-advocacy pivot number 2, from isolated to connected. Remote work took our hallways. We have to rebuild community with intention. You can join your AAPC or HEMA chapter, engage with even us on the Patreon community at bit.ly, the PRNT Sippers. Find one peer accountability partner this month. Professional community is not a luxury. It is a resilience strategy. Self-advocacy pivot number 3, from stagnant to strategic. The 10-year data is clear. A coder who pursues credentials and advancement earns $155,000 to $175,000 more than one who stays flat. Identify the credential that aligns with your next move. Is it the CRC, the CPMA, the CDIP? Build a 90-day plan. Calculate your personal return on investment. And when you see the number, the study time becomes an easy decision. This profession has carried the weight of being overlooked for too long. And I believe with everything in me that the season of invisibility should be ending, is ending. Not because the industry finally woke up on its own, but because coders and CDI specialists and HI professionals are waking up to their value, to their power, and to the community that is building around them. Mr. Jesse. Do you have any closing thoughts?
I just have a question. Um,
Yes.
when coders are leaving the industry or they say they want to leave the industry, where are they going? Because I know where nurses are going when they want to leave the bedside. It's obvious where they're going. But what do coders do when they leave the industry?
I don't know. And most of them leave healthcare altogether. Some of them just leave altogether or take their skills to other places. But that's a great question. That's a great question. If you know where people are going, put it in the chat. Let us know.
Because I
Tell us.
would love to
Talk about
know.
it.
Because I can tell you where
Because
nurses
we can.
go.
Well, yeah, we know nurses always love to come over here and yeah, but they've been doing this for decades. I remember quality assurance and utilization review and all of the things that we were taught how to do. Here comes the
Right,
nurses and here
but
comes the
right,
things. And,
but I'm saying, but like now, but I think now the it's not a creep, it's a takeover because
it
I
was taking over then.
because
It was
I've
the
seen
creep was preparing to take over, and to your point, to erase.
because I've seen more and more jobs now where you they're requiring you to be
Mhm,
a nurse and have a
mhm.
coding credential. Like, really? But yet and
And
still,
somebody needs to stop that. That's foolishness.
but yet and
Certain
still,
certain or jobs or certain careers, yes. All no, absolutely not. And if you knew that that nurse and that coder sat in the same AMP class at one point in time, learning the same information, it could all be so simple. Figure out and know and learn, or be informed about the progress that and the amount of knowledge that the coder had to have in order to do the job that they need to do. They need to know anatomy and physiology. They need to know, of course, medical terminology. They need to know pharmacology. They need to know those things to be a great coder at what they do. You need to know this stuff, and most of them have been. A lot of them have been taught. Okay, I felt a soapbox moment. Let me sit down. It could all be so simple. And it starts with you believing that you are worth fighting for, because you are. So thank you for being here with us today on the Saturday morning tea. I'm Clarice Warner, the girl with the pearls, and join us for part 3, where we are going to claim our seat, make the business case, and chart the road forward together. For my PRN hot tea sippers on Patreon, your episode quiz with answer key is ready. For our elite members, your executive briefing one pager and your 90-day retention and advocacy roadmap are also waiting. And for those who may have an interest and want to get more information about our PRN tea sippers, again, you can go to bit.ly/the PRN tea sippers, or you can click on that QR code that's at the top of the page, and or you can look in the description for information there as well. So T family, thank you for spending your Saturday morning with us. Thank you for investing in your professional growth, and thank you for caring enough about this work and our profession to keep learning. So pour yourself another cup or glass or whatever. Remember, no judgment here. You have earned it. And remember, be safe, be kind, and don't wish for it, work for it. Until next time, take care and have a great weekend.
bye
Bye.
bye.